Hurricane Dorian's power has arrived in North Carolina.
North Carolina braces for Hurricane Dorian, the threat of whipping winds, flooding, and dangerous tornadoes rising by the minute.
A lot of wind, the trees are about sideways.
I don't wish on nobody.
Dorian's deadly wrath unleashed as it moves north. Some of it has already arrived, but there's a lot more to come. Our teams are on the ground with everything you need to know to stay safe. Spectrum News coverage of Hurricane Dorian continues now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday night as we continue tracking Hurricane Dorian. I'm Rob Wu.
And I'm Tara HERRSCHAFT. Hurricane Dorian is bringing rain, winds, and even tornadoes as it enters North Carolina, and this is just the beginning. That's right. It's made multiple landfalls in the Bahamas. One of the big questions now, will it make landfall in North Carolina? Let's send it over to our meteorologist, Gary Stevenson. Gary, do we know yet?
We do not, Rob. As a matter of fact, we're watching it closely. It all depends on the eventual track of the system. It is going to be close to the North Carolina coast as we go through the night. Speaking of the North Carolina coast, you can see the rain is coming down. We can barely see the surf on our camera based at Carolina Beach. As far as storm tracker Doppler radar showing those moderate rain bands, heavy rain bands moving off the coast, moving into central North Carolina. And again, you can see the circulation of the eye right there. Well, not really the circulation of the eye. Let's push in a little bit, show you some of that heavier rainfall from Kinston down to New Bern. We've been watching that band closely because it has triggered a few tornado warnings along that band in the last few hours. Now we widen the view out. There's the eye of the hurricane right there, moving now more in a northeast miles per hour. The storm's expected to make its way up along our coast and then off the coast by Friday afternoon as a Category 2 hurricane. After that, we should start clearing out late afternoon into tomorrow evening, and thankfully quieter weather as we head into the upcoming weekend. Of course, another update coming up in about 7 minutes right here from the Weather on the Winds Forecast Center. Rob, Tara, back to you.
All right, Gary, thanks. So in these early stages, we're already seeing some of Dorian's effects. The rain spinning multiple tornadoes. The North Carolina Department of Public Safety reporting thousands of outages already, and it's still hours before it gets here.
That's right, and our crews are stationed all along the coast out in the elements with updates on how Dorian is already impacting communities along the coast. Spectrum News reporters Angie Angers, Jonathan Lowe, and Alexis Bell are all on standby with their reports. Let's go first to Angie Angers, who's in Southport. And Angie, how are the conditions there now?
Yes, good evening. We actually just received a report from the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office that there is a curfew that will be going into effect tonight at 10 o'clock, goes till tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, and that is for the entire county. But here in Southport, the winds have started to pick up to a level that we really haven't experienced yet in Southport, just steadily rising. Intensifying over the last 90 minutes or so, now getting to the point almost where it takes your breath away a little bit. But here in Southport, we already have a curfew that is in place, and it has been since noontime today. You can see police officers here. They actually just turned away a couple that came to take pictures by the beach because they say in this particular area, it is just not safe. Now, I spoke to the chief of police here in Southport, and we will continue to monitor that. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Angie. And of course, stay safe out there. Now let's head over to Wrightsville Beach.
That's where we find our Spectrum News reporter, Jonathan Lowe, taking a look at the conditions there. Jonathan, how are things compared to when we saw you about an hour ago?
You know what? Last time we spoke to you, it was at least raining and we were getting some gusty winds. We have now been still getting those sustained gusty winds that are coming offshore. However, the rain has stopped, so it's kind of an on-off situation. Wind meter up, and it keeps going up to, I've seen it as high as 23 miles an hour, going down to as low as 7 miles an hour. That just gives you an idea of just how strong the wind is right now. Obviously, we are expecting things to get to go a lot more downhill before they get better. We're going to send things over now to my colleague, Alexis Bell. She is inland in Wilmington, keeping an eye on conditions there. Alexis?
Yeah, similar to what Jonathan said, it's been raining on and off here, and right now it's not too bad. There was some flooding going on, but you can see at the Cape Fear River here behind me that the water is getting pretty rough and it's really high. And there are other areas in Wilmington where the water is high, out at New Center Drive near College Road. There was some flooding going on there, and we saw some cars that were driving through the water. Others were deciding to turn around, which is a little bit smarter thing to do. But there were a few people walking around saying they wanted to see what was going on out at night wears on. So we'll be here giving you updates. I'm Alexis in Wilmington, Spectrum News.
And there's some truly stunning images we're already seeing, and the brunt of the storm isn't even here yet.
That's right, and our Spectrum News reporter Loretta Benini joins us now in the studio. Loretta, you've been keeping an eye on some of the social media and some of the pictures that you've come across. What have you seen so far?
Well, it really is. We've been talking about the winds, the tornadoes that have been going through. On our website, we've actually put together some of the stuff, and this is from Emerald Isle earlier today, where a waterspout went through, and the town of Emerald Isle actually put these pictures up for you, and this is just incredible damage that we're seeing there in Emerald Isle from this waterspout earlier today. The good news is that they say that there were no injuries sustained. Now, of course, we're keeping track of all the video and the cameras that are up throughout this. We have compiled these on our website, spectrumlocalnews.com. So if you actually want to watch these beach cams and see what the conditions are in these areas, you can just log on to our website to see that. We have the Outer Banks, we have Ocean Isle, and you can see that the water is really starting to pick up in these areas. We're expecting it to continue, especially that the wind has been so incredible. Now, with this wind, it is expected that we're going to see a lot of power outages. We've heard that Duke Energy has said that they're expecting hundreds of thousands of people to lose power. This is the map right now of all of the folks in North Carolina who already don't have power. You can see in the Jacksonville area, which is where it has suffered from some of those tornadoes today, that they already have 2,000 people without power. Their latest numbers for the state is just over 14,000 people are without power, but they're saying by the time that this tornado completely moves along the coastline here, we could have over 500,000 people who aren't going to have power. So everybody want to make sure you get everything charged up as soon as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks, Loretta. Of course, we'll be keeping an eye on that map throughout the evening. Meanwhile, a camera 34 miles off our coast that earned fame during Hurricane Florence is back online. Let's get a look of it now. This is a live look at the Frying Pan Shoals Light Tower. That flag you see has not been there that long.
That's right, another one just like it flew during Florence, but it got torn to shreds by the violent winds. Videos of the flag went viral across the nation. Tara, I think that flag that was in tatters went up for auction. Actually sold for, I think, around $2,500. That went back to hurricane relief, so
wow.
That was good news there.
Yeah. Hopefully it won't be a similar sight. Hopefully this flag will withstand those whipping winds and serve as a symbol of hope for North Carolinians this week.
And the winds are just one of the threats we're worried about. Also storm surge and also the potential for flash flooding. Conditions will be deteriorating as we move throughout the night. Let's send it over now to our meteorologist Gary Stevenson for what to expect in the coming hours. Gary.
Yeah, guys, what's going to happen is this going to get
certainly a long night ahead, and our meteorologist will be back in just a few minutes with another update.
But first, we head back on the road. Our team of reporters spread across the state, bringing you the latest on how Dorian is affecting our communities. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Is impacting several cities in our area. Parts of the Sandhills could see about 3 inches of rain. And our Spectrum News reporter Jared Thompson is in Fayetteville to tell us what the conditions are like out there. And Jared, what are you seeing right now?
Well, this is actually a lot of what I'm seeing out here, sandbags, and they're actually all piling up just like this in front of doors. But even just a few feet away from where we just are, there are even more sandbags over here, like you can see here at the bottom of the door. But taking a look even further up, boards right here on this building. Business owners are actually boarding up their places for safety, and they're actually having a proactive approach to this whole thing, just like they did last year during Florence. Now you can see in these shots here that we actually caught up with some other business owners that were boarding up their places for safety. But one thing that Fayetteville police is actually concerned about is flooding on Ray and Mason Streets. Now last year, this place actually got 10 inches of water here, and it's all because of Cross Creek that's over here right behind the stadium. They can hold, so still plenty of time for you to check out those shelters if need be. But for now, I'm in Fayetteville. Jared Thompson, Spectrum News.
Thanks, Jared. And Guilford County's animal shelter has staged an animal response team in Durham to help take care of animals caught in Dorian's path. They have a mobile trailer with 48 kennels. Lisa Lee with Guilford County Animal Services says they learned a lot about planning ahead after last year's storm.
We know what happened last year. We know how many animals were left behind. We know how many shelters were struggling with personnel, just trying to take care of these animals. So the fact that we can just get down there and help them remove these animals before there's anything that happened, you know, is just a wonderful feeling.
The team in Durham is waiting for deployment wherever they're needed along North Carolina's coast. And our team coverage continues as Hurricane Dorian brings mayhem on the coast. We've got live crews on standby all along the storm's path out in the elements. We'll tell you what you need to know to keep you and your family safe. That's all ahead right here live on Spectrum News.
All right, welcome back everyone to the Weather on the One's Forecast Center. Brian McClure from our sister station in Tampa helping us out with our storm coverage as we continue to track Dorian as it works its way closer to North Carolina. Let's go to the maps right now, show you what's going on. First, the live view. Carolina Beach, you can see the rain. Well, it's between us and the camera and the real world. So, yeah, that's the surf right there. A little better view from the Surfline camera at Cape Hatteras. And again, some rough surf along the Outer Banks. And I'll be honest with you, friends, if you've got interest along the Outer Banks, and I do, I got family that live there, I'm a little concerned about those areas right now. Storm tracker Doppler radar rolls into motion. If you were with us at the top of the hour, remember when I was talking about that rain band right there, and I was kind of worried it might spin up some tornadoes? Well, there's a tornado warning right there that is just outside of our viewing area. And we do have a brand new tornado watch. We'll show that to you in just a second. But as we zoom in a little closer, a little bit of moderate rainfall moving across the area right now, and it's going to continue to move across the area as we go through the rest of the evening and overnight hours. There is the center of Dorian right there, just south of the Cape Fear region, moving now to the north-northeast at about 8 miles per hour. Again, we still have the tropical storm warnings in red, in pink, the hurricane warnings. Now, our viewing area has no one in the hurricane warning, but our viewing area has a lot of locations that are in the tropical storm warning right now. Here's that new tornado watch. It includes one county in our viewing area, and that is Pitt County, and it runs until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So again, through the overnight hours, this area of North Carolina could see an isolated tornado, so we're going to be watching that radar very closely. We're also looking at the possibility of flash flooding, so from now until Friday afternoon, all these areas in green have the possibility of seeing some, well, localized flooding concerns, and that's the reason why. These tropical systems are loaded to the brim with moisture, and when that moisture moves on shore, it rains itself out, and some of that rainfall potentially could be heavy as we work our way through the nighttime hours. And again, notice the movement on the radar of the eye, more of a north-northeastward movement. There's Cape Fear right there. There's Cape Lookout right there. And of course, there's Cape Hatteras right there. So if it makes any kind of landfall or the eye makes impact, those are the areas that it is most likely to occur at this time. Latest on Dorian, 105 mile per hour winds, gust to 125. Like I said, moving to the north-northeast at about 10 miles per hour. And again, the current forecast from the Hurricane Center takes it up along our coastline as a Category 2 hurricane from now into Friday afternoon. That's the latest from the Weather on the One's Forecast Center. Tara, back to you.
All right, thanks, Gary. Governor Roy Cooper continues to make his way around the state, stopping by storm shelters to meet with evacuees from Dorian. Our Spectrum News reporter Chris Williams caught up with him in Durham. Chris.
The old Sears here at Northgate Mall is now a shelter. The governor spent a few minutes taking a tour and meeting with families waiting out the storm. A touching moment between Governor Roy Cooper and Melissa Wooden. They sat on the floor playing with her service dog, Sean.
So talking with him, he was very personable. He was very...
If evacuees still can't go home after Dorian, they will at least try to find them another shelter that's closer to their houses. In Durham, Chris Williams, Spectrum News.
Thanks, Chris. And our team coverage continues as Hurricane Dorian brings mayhem along the coast. We've got live crews on standby out in the elements in the storm's path. What you need to know to keep you and your family safe, that's all ahead here on Spectrum News.
We have a long night ahead of us.
Governor Roy Cooper pleading with North Carolinians to stay inside and out of harm's way as Hurricane Dorian sets its sights on our state.
Lights out. That video from South Carolina where more than 250,000 people are in the dark. What's to come for us as we keep an eye for a trio of threats: storm surge, strong winds, and flash flooding.
A lot of wind. The trees are about sideways.
Spectrum News live team coverage of Hurricane Dorian continues right now. And thanks for joining us live at 6:30. I'm Tara HERRSCHAFT.
And I'm Rob Wu with your evening news. Let's get straight over to our chief meteorologist, Gary Stevenson. He joins us now in studio. Gary, could we still see a noticeable shift east or west, or is this track pretty much locked in at this point?
It's kind of locked in, but what we're worried about is the eye actually wobbling as it moves along the North Carolina coast, because as you know, our coast kind of dips in and out. We've got Cape Fear, we've got Cape Lookout, we've got Cape Hatteras, and those are going to be really close to the eye wall in the path of this storm, and it's a dangerous situation for our coastline. It's a dangerous situation basically from central into eastern North Carolina because of this storm, because it's a big storm and it's impacting us right now. All right, let's go to the maps right now. Let's show you a live view. Cape Hatteras, and again, look at those stormy surf conditions that we're dealing with along the Carolina coast. Storm tracker Doppler radar, we roll it into motion for you. And again, it's these feeder bands coming in that look pretty impressive, especially when you start picking up the cloud to ground lightning. And guess what? There is a tornado warning just outside of the Goldsboro-Wayne County area, sparking off of one of those bands. And we're going to continue to see those feeder bands rolling in with more rainfall, moderate to heavy at times, and even more possible isolated tornadoes. So right now, it looks like the chance of tornadoes is going to be locked in just east of I-95 all the way to the coast, the way the atmosphere seems to be setting up. There's the eye of Dorian right now, and like I mentioned, notice that it kind of wobbles around a little bit. There's Cape Fear, there's Cape Lookout, there's Cape Hatteras, and the way they jut out in the water. Again, if this holds that north-northeastward course, those land masses are going to be very close to possibly seeing the eye brush them or actually coming on shore. Of course, in the red, we've got that tropical storm warning. In the pink, we still have that hurricane warning. These are until further notice. These are until Friday afternoon and evening. Well, we'll say Friday afternoon. At that time, the storm will pull away from the area. Here's the new tornado watch that was just issued by the Storm Prediction Center. It goes until 7 o'clock. So basically just east of I-95, back to the coast, the Outer Banks included, you're under that tornado watch until early tomorrow morning. And also from Raleigh back to the Outer Banks, flash flood watch in effect until early Friday morning because of the potential of very, very heavy tropical rains that could lead to localized flooding issues. We also have the storm surge warning all along our coastline, not just the coastline. Remember, the rivers and the tributaries and the sound areas could see storm surge issues as well as we continue through the night and into Friday as well. Here's a closer view of the storm's eye. 105 mile per hour winds, gust to 125 miles per hour, northeast movement at 10 miles per hour. We widen the view and look at the expanse of the moisture up into North Carolina. And again, we're going to keep a very close eye on that eye as it continues to make its way up and along our coastline. And we're going to be dealing with this through the night into tomorrow morning, but I promise you by tomorrow at this time, skies will definitely be clearing from west to east across the area. So buckle up, people, and stay safe as we continue through the nighttime hours tonight into early Friday. Tara, Rob, back to you.
All right, can't wait for that. Gary, thanks. Now, as Gary mentioned, those tropical storm conditions are spreading as Dorian creeps closer to our coast. Things getting especially dicey the next few hours, Tara, as the sun goes down and we move into the night. That's right, and our crews are stationed all over the area out in the rain and wind with updates on how Dorian is already impacting those communities along the coast. Spectrum News reporters Mary Helen Jones, Ryan Breslin, and Evan Siri are on standby with their reports. Let's go first to Mary Helen, who's in Atlantic Beach. And Mary Helen, any damage yet?
We actually have seen some damage in the last hour since we talked. It looks like things have calmed down from the rain, but our photographer Mike Van Orden is going to zoom in right now. We see this white boat over here that someone decided to keep at their home dock. Well, it's underwater now. We had those bands of winds and rain coming through that were so intense we had to walk and go back to the truck a few times. The wind is still here, the rain is gone, but earlier you couldn't even look across the intercoastal waterway here and see Morehead City. If people aren't in their homes now, they need to be in the next 30 minutes, and we are going to head inside in a little bit to go check out. We've heard some reports of flooding, go see what we can see before it gets dark and that impacts of Dorian really start to head our way, guys.
All right, Mary Helen, thanks for that report, and of course, stay safe out there.
All right, now we head over to Nags Head. That's where we find our Spectrum News reporter Ryan Breslin. Ryan, how are things looking where you are?
Hey, good evening, Rob. Well, wind conditions are finally picking up here in Nags Head and across the Outer Banks. We've been seeing the waves grow larger here and the rain finally starting to come down. That's kind of helped a little bit, though, because otherwise the sand was hitting us right in the face. Although we enjoy the exfoliation, it's been nicer to have that down. We've been catching up with some of the people making those final preparations. This is a man at the gas station before he left this afternoon. The wait is over in Dare County as some rain is finally coming down on the Outer Banks.
Yeah, I was hoping it would hold off. It's not gonna be my luck.
The Dare County Board of Commissioners tells me that they're going to have to reassess that depending on how the storm hits. They also say that the Emergency Operations Center is now in full force with all of their support services online. They are watching this storm really closely. Like I mentioned, we are in Nags Head, but we are going to send it over to our Spectrum News reporter, Evan Siri, who is in Raleigh. And Evan, what's going on over there?
Good evening to you, Ryan. That's right. Governor Roy Cooper just wrapping up a brief press conference this afternoon where he sent out a warning to all North Carolinians that we are in for a long night. And of course, that night now in full swing here in Raleigh and along the coast where the wind picking up speed too. I want you to take a look right now at the North Carolina state flag that is on top of the Emergency Operations Center here in Raleigh. It is moving pretty quickly right now. Nothing too crazy, but you can see that the wind speeds are picking up here in Raleigh. For now, in Raleigh, Evan Siri, Spectrum News.
Thanks, Evan. In the eye of a hurricane couldn't prevent the circle of life. A hospital in Florida reporting half a dozen babies born there during Tuesday and Wednesday. Here's a look at some of the pictures. They say the low barometric pressure from Dorian is responsible for inducing labor in their mothers. And Rob, you know, they say that storms also produce babies, if you get my drift.
You got to stay inside. It might be dark out because you have no power, and it's a real thing. I'm from the East Coast up in New York, and after Hurricane Sandy, I think they said 8-9 months afterwards, the hospitals in the area saw a spike in births. So
maybe we'll have to see
a real
some
thing.
Dorian 9 months from now.
I'll be in here though. All right, so who else will be in here? Our meteorologist, Chief Meteorologist Gary Stevenson. Let's go back to him in the Weather Center for the latest on Dorian's path. Gary, it's going to get really dicey because it's going to get dark out real soon.
It is, and that's the problem with this thing. It's coming in during the overnight hours. That's when we're going to see the main brunt of this storm, and that is very, very concerning. So everybody just needs to be on your guard. Surf issues along the coast, lesser effects as you go farther inland across North Carolina. And that's the latest from the Weather Center. Back to you, Tara and Rob.
All right, thanks, Gary. And as Hurricane Dorian inches closer, our team coverage is getting stronger. We're bringing you all of the up-to-date info to keep you and your family safe.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Our coverage of Hurricane Dorian continues now on Spectrum News. Let's go to our news reporter, David Ivey, who joins us now live from Lumberton with a look at the conditions there. David, how are things now at this hour?
I can tell you that within the past roughly half an hour, the wind here in Lumberton, Robeson County has definitely picked up. We were a short distance away from where we are right now, and I'm going to say it was probably 30-35 miles per hour, pretty strong gust. The top of the trees were getting beat to death pretty good. Now, I'm going to move out of the way because I want to show you something that everybody down here is most concerned about. Photojournalist Steve Bell is going to show you this is the Lumber River. Not just today, but tomorrow, possibly even into the weekend. And we'll continue to do that ourselves. Reporting from Lumberton, I'm David Ivey for Spectrum News.
David, thanks for that update. College students and staff are evacuating the impact of Hurricane Dorian. Dozens of UNC Wilmington students and staff were forced into temporary housing at UNC Greensboro's Kaplan Recreation Center. Campus officials say they prepared an action plan for hurricanes 2 years ago.
We exercised what we thought would work, and we obviously discovered things that we can improve on. All those improvements that we identified during the Hurricane Zephyr exercise, we put into play here, and it seems to be working very well.
Students and faculty are being housed in a gymnasium with full access to campus facilities. UNCG plans to house safe to return home. Now, it happens during every hurricane. Authorities warn folks not to leave their homes, and a handful of people just can't resist. At least most people stick to the streets, but one person in South Carolina decided to drive on the beach. Take a look at this. You can guess what happened next. That Jeep got stuck in the sand and police found it just abandoned with the waves crashing on it. Authorities say that they can't do much about it with the storm continuing to batter that area. So onto the beach is where that Jeep will stay until it's safe to have it moved. As for what might happen to the person who drove it there, well, the police haven't said. And our team coverage continues as Hurricane Dorian continues to batter our coast. We have live crews on standby all along the storm's path. We'll tell you what you need to know to keep you and your family safe That's all ahead right here, live on Spectrum News.
Everyone to the weather on the One's Forecast Center, watching Hurricane Dorian very closely as it continues to work its way to the north and east and North Carolina, well, already since earlier today. And again, Surfline camera out of Cape Hatteras. Look at that rough surf along the Outer Banks, and I am definitely concerned that the Outer Banks are going to take a beating from this storm as it continues to work its way up along the North Carolina coastline. Storm tracker Doppler radar showing those rain bands pulling a lot of precipitation, a lot of tropical moisture back into central and eastern North Carolina. But look at the cutoff. Basically, Greensboro, just to the east of Greensboro, just to the east of Charlotte. All right, that's the latest from the Weather on the One's Forecast Center. We're going to throw it back to Tim in the studio.
Hi, Gary. Thank you so much. As problems start to arise, we want to give you some of the information that you may need tonight and into tomorrow. This is ncdps.gov, Department of Public Safety for the state. Some things to remember here. Do not call 911 unless it's an emergency. So we have 211 that you can call or text for information and recovery help. There's also 888-892-1162. You can also text NC Dorian to 898-211. For road conditions across the state, you can go to drivenc.org. And of course, if there is an emergency, you can call 911. But of course, try to keep those for emergencies. I want to give you an update now on some of the power outages going on across the state. This is also from the Department of Public Safety. We are at just under 17,000 power outages at this hour. Some of the reds here, you can see where the most of them are. A little under 3,000 in Onslow County down along the coast there. Just under 1,000 in Duplin County. Some places you might not think where there'd be a lot of outages we're seeing at this hour. Nearly 2,500 in Johnston County. Of course, we saw some of those tornado warnings that were going through there earlier this afternoon and evening. A little over 3,000 outages in Robeson County. This area of the state, of course, was inundated with water and issues from Hurricane Florence last fall. So folks dealing with issues again. And how about this in a little bit in the western part of the state, or western from all the storms, Mecklenburg, with just under 2,000 outages. So that's where we're at this hour, just under 17,000 outages in North Carolina. Of course, as the wind starts to come, we'll probably see some of those numbers start to increase along the coast for the folks in North Carolina. So a lot to keep track of. But again, 211 is a good number if people want to get some information on the storm and don't have an emergency.
Absolutely. All right, Tim, some very important information. Yeah. Thanks for that update. And Rob, so far we've seen tornado warnings, lots of rain and wind, and it's just getting started.
That's right. We've still got hours to go, and we talk about the wind, and I think a lot of times our meteorologists talk about the winds as well. That's what the category is based on, but most hurricane deaths are for other reasons, like storm surge and the flooding. I think the stat I read was 11% of the deaths directly caused by hurricanes are caused by the wind. It's the other factors that and we're still a lot of that to go.
The only good thing is that the storm appears to be moving pretty quickly once it gets to North Carolina, unlike Florence that just hung around. So that is the good news. Hopefully the storm just kind of moves on out.
And especially Matthew. Matthew went from, like I said before, Matthew went from east to west, so that sort of went perpendicular to North Carolina, dumping all that rain. One other thing real quick, Tara, that bodes in our favor, before Matthew came by, these sandhills got a lot of rain, so those river levels were already high. So the good news is they can kind of use a little, they were fairly dry so far this year, so they can take a little more rain.
And thanks for sticking with Spectrum News this hour as live Hurricane Dorian coverage continues. We're signing out, but keeping you in good hands.
That's right. We're going to send it over to our Charlotte colleagues, Brittany McDonald and Ruben Jones, taking over for the next several hours to help get you through Dorian. Guys?
Thanks, Rob and Tara. Spectrum News continues our live team coverage of Hurricane Dorian now at 7 o'clock.